the next 2 days, Tone. How you going to spend that super long weekend?
I'm Tony Kornheiser, texting with you, Pookie.
Oh, of course.
Like we do all the time.
Of course. In the tournament, you're going to play golf or you're going to watch?
I'm going to watch. I mean, because the weather where I am for tomorrow has rain, and for Friday has high winds. So
got seats on my flight. 85 and sunny, baby.
I know.
Scottsdale, huh? Scottsdale National.
It's tempting. I'd like to play.
Right.
Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, tournament picks, NBA tanking, and Tim Legler joins us for 5 good minutes. But we begin today with last night's NCAA play-in games. In the first one, Alabama State scored off a Hail Mary pass with less than 1 second to go to beat St. Francis. In the second game, North Carolina responded to all the criticism leveled at its inclusion in the tournament by people like you, Wilbon, and pounded San Diego State 95-68. Wilbon, which was the more compelling result from last night, Carolina winning big or Alabama State winning dramatically?
Alabama State, they're Carolina. It doesn't matter who they can beat. You know they can beat people. They're North Carolina, and I don't want to hear it. They don't belong in the tournament. I love North Carolina. I feel really bad saying that because I know Hubert Davis and really respect him. As a coach and a former player, really. But don't tell me North Carolina belongs because they don't belong. Now I'm going to get calls from friends of mine.
I'm just going to tell you, you're going to hear from me. I got a text from North Carolina grad Curry Kirkpatrick the other night.
Goodness.
He's angry at you. He's angry at you.
I know. I got a lot of Carolina people angry at me who I know well. Now, Alabama State. So I wasn't watching it live.
Oh.
And the text I get says, if you want to be really angry as a Bears fan, this play is going to remind you exactly of that.
That's right. Jaden Daniels play.
And I get the clip, and it was one David Israel who texted me.
Yeah.
And I look at it, and I got angry. I got angry all over again. It's the same play. It is. And it's so dramatic. That's March Madness.
Yeah.
Not Carolina winning some game by 60 that it shouldn't be in.
I'm going to get to Carolina unless the bell rings. But I'm going to start with this. I watched the last 4 minutes of this game. I landed on it. I got off the golf. I watched this. So St. Francis is down about 6 with a minute and a half to go. And in a period of time, they hit 2 threes and they tie the game. And then after that, they cannot hold on to the ball. They possess it, but they knock it out of bounds or somebody takes it away. And then this kid on the last play on the Hail Mary flings it the length of the court. It hits 2 or 3 different people, settles in the arms of an Alabama State guy who banks it in. It is unbelievable theater. It is elation and it is broken hearts. The only thing I'll say to you about Carolina is this. They must have heard you and everybody else, like the governor of West Virginia, saying, get out of the tournament.
I don't want to sue anybody.
I feel pretty good about this in this regard because I did sit here and say from the beginning, they should be in. They could beat 30 teams in the tournament. They go out 21-11 halfway through the first half. Then it's 33-13. Then it's 47-23.
I turned it off at 33-13.
They hit 14 threes, the most ever. You know, I'm just saying to you. I'm saying to you, they can do damage. Do you remember when Syracuse was in a similar position as a bubble team, went to the 16? VCU, a play-in
North
team.
Carolina
VCU
State
went to the Final
in
Four.
1983.
So
they got in by the hair of their chinny chin chin and won the whole thing. I'm not saying Carolina, once they get in, can't play. I'm saying, come on now. Come on. You know.
Curry will text you directly.
You don't like the underdog.
Robbie Petty, your boy.
You think I haven't heard? You think I haven't heard from Robbie Petty? Think I haven't heard from him
You
yet?
wanted Indiana in, hardly an underdog.
Not exactly.
40,000 people.
You know, they're closer to my people. The 64-team field tips off tomorrow, Tone.
Yeah.
We've already talked about who's in the tournament. Now it's time to talk about how we see the tournament playing out.
Yeah.
So, who do you feel most confident and least confident about?
I'm going to duck the question to a certain degree. Because I think the narrative of this tournament is the SEC. I think it is the results that the SEC puts up. They have 2 number 1s. They have Auburn and Florida. They have 2 number 2s, Tennessee and who's the other one? And Alabama. They got a number 3 Kentucky. They got a number 4 A&M, which means they got 6 of the first 60. It's an unbelievable array of teams. And now what are they going to do out there?
Okay, well, do you feel confident in the SEC team.
I have watched these teams. And by the way, if they don't get anybody in the Final Four, just go to spring football. Just leave us alone. Go to spring football. I've watched their top 4 teams a couple of times each.
Yeah.
They can all score, but none of them scores like Florida. Florida, Mike, is the best team I have seen all year, unless I just caught them at the best 2 games they played. They look like a juggernaut.
They do. They can put you in the mindset of a couple of other Florida teams that won.
With Billy
Donovan went all the way. I don't have any great confidence in any single team.
Right.
I'm fascinated by this tournament because I really believe this, and I am not the opposite of prisoner of the moment. Usually, I think they're just more really good teams than ever in the tournament. Used to be, you'd look at it, there's 4 or 5 teams that could win. Now, I mean, it could be 12,
right?
14 teams that could win. I look at Auburn, as good as they've been, they lost 3 or 4.
Yeah.
3 of Kelvin Sampson.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm looking at those coaches and their ability in tight games.
So you're running away from the SEC.
I've done it all year,
but
so you got to prove it to me.
Yeah.
And they may prove it. They may make me look stupid. Florida, I love this Noah's Ark theme. They got 2 of everything because it looks true. It does.
They look really good to me. The one game I want to see early, and by the way, there are so many SEC teams in, you're going to get all SEC games in the second round.
You could.
In the second round. I want to see, I am rooting, not against Kansas, but I'm rooting to see Calipari and Patino in the second round.
You know what?
In the second round.
Like Bill Self, I root for him. I got Kansas going out in the first game.
Yeah, you got Calipari beaten. Let's move to the NBA and the subject of tanking. The Tankorama game of the entire season is tonight in Utah as the terrible Jazz play the woeful Wizards in a game where the loser may have the inside track on the number 1 pick. The Wizards tanked the other night in Portland, and Utah might see tonight's game as an opportunity to tank as well. Oklahoma City, which does not tank, is nonetheless resting Shai Gilgeous-Alexander tonight against the Sixers. Because of a 2020 trade, Oklahoma City owns Philly's first-round draft pick this year if the pick is number 7 or worse. So the Thunder has incentive to lose so that Philly will win, and Philly has incentive to lose so it will retain its own draft choice. Wilbon, should everyone play to lose tonight?
You know what, Tony? If Wembanyama, this was last year, I might say
you don't have Cooper Flagg as Wembanyama.
I don't know that.
Wembanyama's generational.
And there's nothing to look at Cooper Flagg this year about and say, oh, I doubt it. There just isn't. The kid has checked every box so far, but it doesn't mean that you're a dominant number 1 player who's going to change a team's fortunes in the first or second season. It doesn't mean that. And so I don't know that they should lose. The Wizards, I am interested. Because, look, I'm not going to lie. I'd love to be able to go down the street and see Cooper Flagg for the next few years.
Yeah.
I might buy tickets for that. But I don't know that. And the Wizards, even though you're killing them.
I am going to kill them.
Some of those guys are developing, Tony, at a rate that may say Alex Sarr.
Maybe.
That if you twin him with Cooper Flagg, you might have something.
That's right. I'll give you that. But I said this yesterday. I'm going to say it again. The NBA should investigate the Washington Wizards for tanking that game against Portland. Yeah. Their 2 best players, Poole and Middleton, played fewer than 11 minutes. They played no minutes in the second half.
Right.
2 other starters outside who you love, right? And Keyshawn George played about 20 minutes. The Wizards attempted to lose and succeeded at losing. Now, the only reason I bring this up, Mike, is because all sports now have gambling partners.
Yeah.
Baseball does, football does, basketball does.
Yep.
So if the NBA is encouraging you to bet, they can't give you a boat race. They have to guarantee the integrity of the game, and they did not in that case. In this case tonight, it's going to look like a G League game.
Okay.
Nobody's going to try.
But you had 2 games like that the other night. Actually 3, because Philadelphia had no squad. Philadelphia may as well have had George McGinnis and Julius Erving playing, and they went to double overtime or whatever it was. Denver didn't have Joker or Jamal Murray, and they lost. And then Indiana didn't have their 6 top players, and they won.
Right, they're not attempting to tank, though. Like tonight between Oklahoma City, because of this draft pick, and Oklahoma City wants Philly to win, and Philly wants to lose.
Yeah.
It's a time, Mike, when neither team has an incentive to win.
Should the game be off the board?
Yes.
Well, then that's Vegas can take the game off the board.
This is a problem if neither team has any incentive to win. Oklahoma City
Vegas
doesn't
take
tank.
the game. No, they don't.
No, they're the head of their division.
They win
head
if
of the
SGA is
conference.
out in a few games he misses.
But you know what I'm saying?
You want the Wizards. You don't want to see this kid.
I do want to see him. Sure, I want to see him.
All right, well, he could be in a Wizards uniform if they lose.
Yeah, what if I moved to Arizona and he's playing in Phoenix? Let's take a break. Coming up, who should be the NBA MVP? Oh, no, my favorite
that's
question.
great.
We will ask it to Tim Legler.
You know the Suns could be in the lottery? You hit up on something there. We'll also ask him why he's concerned about the Knicks even after Jalen Brunson returns from injury. The
My
Suns are
thing on
gonna be in
Cooper
the lottery.
Flagg is different than yours. I think he's too young. I think take another year in college. You're 18. You're playing against men next year.
Pardon the Interruption is brought to you by...
Like to you without him.
They're starting to look a lot better than they did initially, and it's primarily because it's related to Luka's efficiency. You know, his game is predicated on being able to make you fear him from the three-point line. It's very important. And when he first got there, he could not make a three-point shot. It changes the way you play him. It changes your ability to have to help on him in the paint, which sets up the lobs. It sets up the corner kick-out threes. If you're daring him to take that shot because you know he's not in rhythm, they're a different team to guard. He is now he didn't shoot well last game. He was 1 for 7 from the three, but he took it from 24% from the three in February when he first got there over a handful of games, 42% in March prior to the last game. So for me, you can see the legs are starting to get there under him. The efficiency is starting to come back with him. It's setting up his ability to dictate and control possessions offensively. So for me, that's really what this is about. Their defense has been very, very good for quite a long time. I think they're third in the league over the last 15 games. They've answered that question for me. They know how to protect Luka defensively. JJ Redick deserves a lot of credit for that. So the big question is, how long was it going to take Luka to start to look like Luka offensively with the way he can control you? And that is there now. So for me, that's a very positive sign. And then, by the way, last thing, Austin Reeves, how many number 3 players on a team in this league are you going to take ahead of Austin Reeves right now, the way he is playing? It's really remarkable what this guy is doing on a nightly basis offensively, and the way he is dominating defenses has broken through the ceiling in what I thought he could be as a player. So that's another great sign for the Lakers.
All right, I'm going to annoy Tony now, Tim. Really annoy him by getting to a question he says we start asking in October and we don't stop asking until June. Who you got for MVP, since we're going to see Joker, of course, tonight? You got Jokic or you got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander right now? If you had to turn in your ballot tonight, who would it be?
Yeah, well, Michael, I think actually, if I recall, I think October 22nd, opening night, somebody had a big game and I was asked who's the front runner. So I know what Tony's talking about. We start a little bit too early with this stuff. I agree. Now, look, I don't necessarily think 12, 13 games to go is too early. But here's what I'm going to tell you. All of the years I've known you two, all of the TV I've done with you, the conversations I've had with you, I legitimately do not think you could have ever asked me a more difficult question than who is the MVP of this league. And that for that reason, and I have a vote, I am withholding my thought on this till the end. You know why? There are still more big moments to be played for both of these teams. Oklahoma City is trying to secure home court advantage throughout the finals. They're deadlocked with the Cleveland Cavaliers for that. Obviously, Denver could be 2, they could be 5. That's a big difference in the West. There are still so many more big moments to come. I'm going to wait. So what it comes down to is this. The statistical dominance has to be there. Obviously, it is. Both guys. It's historic with Shai. It's incredible what this guy has done with his consistency, and he's sprinting through the wire. He's getting stronger as the year goes. It's the statistical dominance versus team success. How do you weigh those two things? Oklahoma City has a 12.5 game lead over everybody in the West. That is going to figure heavily for some voters, and I don't blame them. I could make a great argument for either guy. They're both deserving. I'm going to wait and let this play out.
You are concerned about the Knicks even after Jalen Brunson returns. What is your concern?
Well, the first one is with Jalen Brunson specifically. You know, when you land out of the air on someone's foot, it's a lot different than when you're dribbling a basketball and you step on someone's foot when your other leg is already on the ground. The amount of force you're generating when you're coming out of the air. When I saw him turn it that night, I said, this is going to be weeks before we see Jalen Brunson. because it looked that bad. So he's going to come back. He's going to be bothered by that the rest of the year, in my opinion. And to the extent that, hey, guy like Jalen Brunson, if you take even 10% less quickness from him, that makes him more guardable by more guys. And it's just a different feel he's going to have the rest of the way. So him, it starts with him. But also, I just think defensively, they haven't convinced me that that's going to be enough against the Boston Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And what else matters? I'm not judging the Knicks by the Bucks, the Pacers, the Pistons if they get them in the first round. Their measuring stick is Cleveland and Boston. And those two teams are prolific offensive teams. And I don't know that the Knicks are going to be good enough at the point of attack with their ball screen defense, no matter what Hart and Anunoby do and Bridges. That part of it is not going to be good enough to slow those teams down with a fully healthy Jalen Brunson. If he's limited in any way, I don't even think you can match them on the other end. And so for me, that's why I think a successful end of the season is a tough, hard-fought series against the Boston Celtics in which they probably lose in 6 games.
Breaking your heart again, Tom.
Those things happen. Those things happen.
Yeah.
Tim Legler, thank you. Isn't he good?
Appreciate it.
How many years have we go back?
Thank you, guys.
Legler?
30.
Let's go back a long time.
At least.
Tim is calling the Nuggets-Lakers game tonight at 10 Eastern. Let's take one last break. Still to come, Jalen Milroe puts up an impressive number at his pro day.
And was the best play of today's Dodgers win, you got to go there, turned in by a familiar-looking fan?
So the two people who were on with us and George Michael for the first time were Tim Legler and Stephen A. Smith.
That's right.
Both of them started with us doing basketball
We're
shows.
taking credit.
In touchdown to interception ratio. Bad QB play has been a major issue for Cleveland in the last 2 decades. The only team with a worse QBR than the Browns since the stat began in 2006 is the Jets. All right, so as bad as the quarterback play has been, Mel Kiper Jr. in his latest mock goes best available player for Cleveland at number 2 with Abdul Carter going to the Browns. You can certainly make a case for that pick. And Jeremy, let's start with you. What are you hearing about Cleveland and the dilemma of what to do at the quarterback position there?
Yeah, Laura, in true Browns fashion, it feels like Cleveland has 6 quarterbacks right now. They are still engaged with Russell Wilson. There's some interest there after he visited with them in a free agency visit late last week, so they're talking to him. Carson Wentz, I'm told there's been some interest dating back to the Combine, so he's still on their radar as sort of a contingency plan. They have Kirk Cousins on the radar too, but with Atlanta unwilling to move him, there's not so much they can do right now unless they're willing to pay a big part of that salary, which they're not. So they're sort of standing pat, seeing how those dominoes fall. And meanwhile, picking it 2nd overall, not a slam dunk that they take a quarterback, but I am told that they see positives in both Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. They would be on the side of liking those guys as opposed to being, wanting to stay away from them. So those are options for them. We'll see.
I mean, does this just sound like quarterback purgatory or outright quarterback hell for this team or what? I mean,
Yes.
It's unbelievable to think about where this team is as far as quarterback is concerned. And let's just rewind it all the way back to this terrible contract for Deshaun Watson, that there's 2 more years left on that deal. No one knows when you're going to see him ever again, but you're still saddled with that contract hanging around your neck. And then you bring Kenny Pickett in here, and he's the only other quarterback on the roster. You don't really have any certainty at running back position. Jerry Jeudy has a nice year last year, but you need more juice on the outside. You have a decent defense when it's healthy. And we're sitting here talking about, well, you know what? Maybe they draft a quarterback. Maybe they don't. Maybe we sign Russ. Maybe it's Kirk. You're going nowhere until you figure out this position. You're going nowhere. You play in a division with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. And I'll tell you, if you have conviction in one of these 2 quarterbacks, you better take him. You better take one of them if you have that kind of conviction. Because if you don't, and look, I just feel like this organization is dead in the water. It's dead in the water without this position being fixed. And I just don't see how they get out of this anytime soon, considering the teams that they're dealing with in their division.
No, to your point, Lou, I think the only way out of this is to draft out of it. I don't think Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson are going to come and save you. Even if you're good for a year with a veteran quarterback, you're just in the same position again in a year because these are both older guys. I think this is where you do look at the draft. And someone you mentioned earlier, Tyler Shuck from Louisville, is interesting to me here because he is that experienced quarterback who could come in and play right now. Now, I like Jackson Dart. He's my number 3 quarterback, but I think he needs time to sit coming out of that Ole Miss system. Tyler Shuck, I think this guy could play right now because of the size, the arm strength, the anticipation, what he brings from a mobility standpoint, but also because he's been around the block in college football. He was Justin Herbert's backup at Oregon. He goes to Texas Tech and has 3 years with just kind of like fluke injuries that end each season. Then he gets to Louisville. He's really developed. He's coached well. So I think he could be in play at pick number 33, where the Browns are at in round 2, and could be that guy that is a rookie starter. I know everybody's going to say this is Brandon Weeden again, drafting the old quarterback. He didn't play minor league baseball. That's not why. He's a little bit older. But this is a team that has to draft its way out of the hole that they've dug.
You know, I definitely agree with you,
Weeden.
Matt. They got to draft their way out of a hole. I just don't know if they're going to draft Shadur Sanders at number 2. As Lewis said, it just depends on how you feel. I think we're all kind of getting the same feeling that Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans have become a match as we get closer to the draft. So if you're Cleveland and Cam Ward goes number 1 and you're sitting there at number 2, Abdul Carter's sitting there, Travis Hunter is sitting there, Shadur Sanders is sitting there. Which one of those players? We all know the quarterbacks are going to get overdrafted. They do every year. They're going to continue to get overdrafted because there's a premium on that position. But if you're Cleveland, can you afford to get it wrong again? You got it wrong with Deshaun Watson. You've gotten it wrong with Brandon Weeden. You've gotten it wrong with a lot of guys. Can you afford to get it wrong again? I just don't know how much appetite they have to do that, especially with Abdul Carter sitting right there in front of your face and a premium on pass rush. I could see myself licking my chops, putting Abdul Carter on one side, Myles Garrett on the other side, and you may not be able to score many points on offense. But the other team might not score many either if those guys get after the quarterback. So it all depends on what Cleveland wants to do.
You mean any points, not many.
That's a shutdown action right there. Here's the thing. That helps the offense, right? Time now for one more thing. For that, we're going to check in on Alabama's Pro Day, where quarterback Jalen Milroe ran a 4.37 in the 40-yard dash. Look at this guy. In fact, he actually doesn't even look to me like he's running that fast. He's so athletic. He's got so much talent. Look, this is impressive.
It's super impressive. To me, he may be a better athlete than Anthony Richardson. It's going to depend on what quarterback coach, what offensive coordinator is willing to pull the trigger, more importantly, win, and they want to bring him in to see what they can do and can they coach him up to play the position the right way.
Matt, look at him. He tweeted himself, surprise.
Well, to your point, and he's weaving in that 40. He wasn't even running a straight line like we see at the combine. He was weaving. He's probably faster than that.